You're now listening to Design with Vivian Toh.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us on the 5th episode of Design. I am Vivian Toh, and for this evening, I'll be speaking to Cecil Onodera, who is the Director of Creative Studies at ALFA International College. So, for this evening alone, we are going to talk something interesting about the creative economy agenda, how it will improve the landscape of the creative industry. Later on, we will be another guy, a special
we'll be
guest.
Joined by
we'll be joined by Karunajanan Noel, who is also from ALFA International College.
Yeah, I've seen his photo on your website.
Yeah.
He seems like an interesting guy.
Exactly, right? We'll catch up with him later on.
Great.
So the creative economy agenda, what is it about? Cecil, good evening.
Good evening, Vivian.
How are you feeling?
Fine, thank you.
Now, let's get this started. Now, the next big thing in the creative industry is the study of marriage between fashion and entrepreneurship. I believe there is also a study of a marriage between design in general and entrepreneurship. Now, how did you get started in this study?
Well, let's see. It's probably an outgrowth of the college looking for a niche, a particular focus as a tertiary education provider. Its history has been in the design disciplines, and we've now focused more on, as you said, the marriage between design and business as our particular niche. And an example of that is this new course that we've introduced called Fashion Entrepreneurship, which is the marriage between fashion design and business entrepreneurship. So it was kind of an outgrowth of the need in the industry, of the market, not just in design, but in particular design with business entrepreneurship.
How do you see the design landscape in Malaysia currently? Is it as commercially viable as people have been talking about it?
Well, design is a very promising discipline. Unfortunately, a lot of parents don't really understand what design is, and for their children who have passed the SPM tests, now looking towards their careers, parents will inevitably ask questions such as, what career shall my child best be suited for? And they ask questions like, how much money will they be making for whatever career? And because they don't necessarily understand what an architect or a graphic designer or a multimedia designer would typically make, design is often misunderstood, and it's our job at ALFA College to inform parents the promise, the opportunities that design disciplines can provide for their children, and the wonderful career opportunities that there are.
So how do you do so? How do you make sure or inform the parents of the great potentials of getting started in design?
Well, probably the best way to do that is by letting them know about our graduates, alumni, and describing to them some of the typical job opportunities and career pathways that our graduates have followed. There have been a number of successful graduates who have gone on to start their own businesses or join well-established organizations and corporations, both here in Malaysia and abroad.
Mm-hmm. So it's written here on the outline that you've given me earlier on that ALFA College, it's specialized in offering design-related courses. Now, how did it all happen?
How did it all happen? Well, this year we've celebrated our 15th year anniversary, and it started in 1998. A number of teaching lecturers left an established college here in KL and established their own, what we call a boutique college, focusing on the design industries. And those practitioners happen to be in architecture, interior architecture, graphic design, and multimedia design. And it was that kind of odd assemblage of particular practitioners that formed, and their specialties, that the college then developed and established itself.
Do you encourage, does the college encourage a constant discussion among the creative people and lecturers about the trends and what's going on? Will it affect how the course is being laid out?
Oh, definitely. It's important that the academic curriculum, the program, is relevant to the industry. So it's one of our duties to make sure that we stay in touch with industry players, particularly with our alumni, since they're the ones who are actually practicing in the industry, whether it's architecture or graphic design or whatever the particular design discipline.
Then I think there must be something interesting to find out from the usual conversation among the staff. And so what is the interest among younger generation? Have you found out anything interesting that might interest them in regards to the fashion entrepreneurship?
The cool thing is about design is that it's wide open, and it's all based on the creativity and vision of the individuals who explore the field. It could be anything from more traditional design work, like designing buildings or interior design, but more recently into things like video games. Mobile apps are all related to design, and so the future is there for exploration. It's basically up to the particular individuals and the students, and the important role that teachers and lecturers play to help students and young people tap into their individual vision.
Mm-hmm. So now we're talking about a bit about education, and now putting an additional ingredient to a design course, which is also known as business. So what is good about this fashion entrepreneur course? What will they learn from it?
So in general, there are the design disciplines that I've been mentioning about in overview. But there are some real-world issues, problems that need to be addressed. So it's not just fine arts or art for art's sake. There's a practical application that needs to be addressed, practical, real-world problems. So there's this creative element that students and practitioners bring to the table. But there's also the element of business and the role of business in this economy. The only way any practitioner can survive is by making sure their business makes money and so forth. So what we've done at ALFA College is to bring typical or traditional design discipline and learning with business skills. And so the first example that we've been focusing on now is fashion entrepreneurship, which is the joining of fashion design and business entrepreneurship.
When you say real issues, what are the real issues? Can you tell us a bit more about that?
So those are typically things like, architecture is a practical design field. It's not simply someone's ideal building that exists in some ideal space. There's an actual location. There's actual streets. There's traffic, circulation issues, all these kinds of things impacting the environment that an architect needs to address. So that's what I mean by real-world issues. And then you tie in things like budget and limited finances, and so you can't just build some fantastic creation. It has to actually conform to certain limitations, whether it's budgetary or space or traffic, legal issues, so forth.
But what I see, what I've found throughout my years of being in the creative industry myself, I hear people saying that designers are not thinking deeper. They know how to churn out. They are like robots. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Right. So that is a problem. Like you said, the way some design disciplines are taught, it can be something like a cookie cutter approach, and it's copy and paste. And with the introduction of computers, that's an easy trap to get into, where you're just copying old projects and applying old solutions to new settings. So that's where the need to think out of the box really comes into play. And one of our primary responsibilities as a teaching academy is to make sure that that kind of thing happens less and less, and we explore and challenge students to find out their individual creativity.
Studies do get boring, right? And in order to get the students engaged and get interested in what they are going to learn, how is ALFA College is doing in that area? How do we really get them interested?
So we'll typically talk with graduating secondary school students, so SPM leavers, and the best way to get kids interested in design is through hands-on experience with design. So we will hold workshops. We'll go visit schools and do things like T-shirt painting workshops. We recently held a furniture design building workshop using straw and tape. We did a tower design workshop. So it's just hands-on creativity in teams that seems to work well for us.
I've made several visits to ALFA College before, giving talks and also to visit the staff. And I see there is a wall, some sort of like a wall of fame, where you have certificates given out to industry players. What are those actually?
So those are celebrating our relationships with industry leaders. They can be professional associations, corporations that work with us closely to help educate students about design and the particular organization that we're working with.
Okay. We are going to take a short break, and when we return, we will delve deeper into the creative economy agenda, particularly from the perspective of ALFA International College, on how it can be improve the creative industry. You are listening to Design on Bernama Radio 24.